So, hi, I'm Martin. I'm a security architect at the NCSC. I'm joined with Adam, who's also a security architect, and Duncan from NCC Group, who's a developer that's been helping us on this project. So, we'll give you the conference guide had this as our photos. As you can see, we're not wrestlers, unfortunately, but still pretty big. I'm a bit too. I'm like. I'm too young to really know who these guys are, but apparently
Jim the Anvil Needhart, Bret Hart, I think, and Sergeant Slaughter.
There you go. So
show me.
Every day's a school day. Cool. So what we're going to do over the next 2 hours, we can give you a few minutes of introduction to logging, why we do it, what Logging Made Easy is. Adam's going to run through the installation guide. We've got some videos to show you. We won't get you doing that bit because that's not the interesting part. So we'll kind of breeze over that bit. And then you've got an hour and a half. We've got a lab environment that you can access to get hands-on with some data, have a play around with the help stack that we've got. And then we'll have a bit of time for a wrap-up at the end, some questions if you've got them. So why does logging matter? Why do we do it? Like a simple kind of start place is for operational, like health data. So if you've got an environment, knowing when things are alive, when things have gone down, why your users can't access the internet, things like that. If you've got some logging capability, that'll help answer some of those questions. In the event of a cyber incident, it gives you a post-mortem functionality, so you can work out or try and work out what happened. And logging is the first step on the journey to security monitoring. So if you think about it almost as a maturity model, where logging is the kind of first step towards things like threat hunting and more capable stuff. Logging Made Easy. So rather than a product, it's more of an architectural pattern and a series of guides that we've created to show you how to do host-based logging for your enterprise environment. So it's all open source, freely available tools like Sysmon and Elastic. The aim being, this is for if you have no capability at all. So if you already have a SIEM, we're not saying throw it away and use this. This is something to complement that. Or if you don't have anything, this is a good place to start. It's fairly cheap. Basically all you're paying for is a small amount of compute and storage. Obviously, if you've got a huge environment that you're trying to run this on, then it's going to cost you a little bit more. Like you said, trying to reduce the technical barrier. And we've got a bunch of scripts and documentation that you can access that will show you how to set this up, how to install it. And in the future, we're going to look at a bit more into threat hunting, how to do that. So I'm going to pass on to Adam now, who is going to go through the installation guides.
So, quick show of hands before we crack on with the video. Has anybody looked at the documentation before today? One? A few hands, a few. So, all documentation is marked down on GitHub, so it's freely available. You can go to the github.com/UKNCSC/LME. It's all available there, but we'll talk through the first 3 of the 4 chapters. The 4th chapter is download a JSON file, upload a JSON file. It's pretty boring. But essentially what we're trying to do is use built-in window components or and download other Microsoft services to enable event collection and forwarding to a new server that you build yourself. That then forwards it via Winlog Beat onto Elasticsearch. That's basically what we're trying to do here. So the way I see Logging Made Easy, I kind of think of it like a pizza. So you could either spend a lot of money, phone up a pizza delivery company of your choice, and it'll be there within 20 minutes. Or you could use the things that you already have in your house for very little money as long as you're willing to spend a day or so to, I don't know, put all the ingredients together, prove, need, and all the rest of it. So that's kind of how I see LME. It's your choice whether to spend 20 minutes or 6 hours, essentially. So chapter 1 has a few steps. So we talk, there's 3 GPO policies we need to apply. So one of them is for the clients, one of them's for the server, and one of them's for the clients to do a scheduled task to download and update Sysmon, and the scheduled, the XML file for the capability for Sysmon. So what we're doing here, we're importing a GPO that you download as part of the documentation. This is LME GPO server, I think. Like I said, this is available. These videos are slightly out of date because we are updating it at the moment. So if you are trying to install it, don't follow this video to the letter. Proper videos will be coming out a few weeks' time. Yeah. Don't quote me that, but yes, there will be videos before there's a question. So again, we're now importing the client to that group policy into that operational user domain. So this particular video is 5 minutes long with multiple different stages. The second video is around the same time. So you can, if you know what you're doing, you know how to implement and work with group policy objects, you can install LME in about 20 minutes time. Like it can be done. The long time you're really doing is waiting for the scheduled task to run, for the machines to start beaconing. So yeah, again, this is for the server. And now if I try and skip on a bit, again, so we have, if I just pause it, I don't know if anybody's pausing practice. So at this point, group policies have been imported. I'm now using the Active Directory and computer to apply those machines through WMI filtering to then apply them to the actual policies, the OU policies that I've created. Yeah, you can see them here, wet client and wet server. And I'm adding those clients into the that OU. And we go on, and one of the GPO objects, the client one, you need to update it and edit it. This is all documented, of course, but you just need to say where the events are going to be sent to, so your WEC collector. So it'd be wec.yourdomain, or whatever you want to call it, but you just need to update it in the actual log or the policy. So we try to make this workshop as much about the data as rather than the installation, but we can't really skip over the installation, unfortunately. If anybody has tried to install it or knows somebody who has tried to install it and there's any sort of specific problems you have had with it, come speak to us on, during the hands-on point. No, so for the actual workshop hands-on part, it'll be a web URL that you'll be able to go to. No, you don't need to do any installation. This is why we didn't do the actual installation as part of the workshop, because everybody's domain is slightly different, everybody's got different capabilities, etc. If you don't have a laptop with you, then you may not get the most out of the workshop. However, if you do want to see what the data looks like, then I'm sure Duncan can talk you through some of the steps and what it actually looks like and what the dashboards that are pre-built. So this is where we're actually updating the configuration. So this is the wet testing.lme server.
Sorry, so just to recap, so you're installing WEC right here, you're not actually, is that what you're doing?
No, so on this bit, we are deploying GPOs that configure things like WinRM to support the native forwarding.
Right.
So this is on the domain controller.
Yeah, allowing so the clients need configuration settings to say where they're going to send the logs to. Or they also need Windows firewall rules and things like that to allow them to send it. And then the server also needs to have like the WinRM service started and the event collection service started, so that the logs will actually be able to be received. Yeah. So that's what these GPOs are doing, and this setting here is one of a few you've got to set.
And also, will you tell us which GPO, like for login? So there's in the group policy for login, you can enable
advanced audit policy.
Yeah, like object auditing, access and stuff like that. But you don't want to enable all of them, right?
Yeah.
So which ones should
So that's not in this release. It is in a release coming this year.
And equally, it's extensible. So if you say, "Oh, I don't see USB insertion events, but I want to have that included as well," then you can upgrade that and then have that data. But obviously, the more data you add, the more latency, more data flow you need to then provide on your network. So it might be fine for on-site, but if you have lots of remote users who hardly ever they dial up maybe to download their emails and that's it, then you don't want to be slowing their machine down because then the user experience is then impacted. And obviously, the overheads that we've tested with the default configuration, overhead is pretty low. There's not much notable from a user standpoint, no overhead. But if you then start upping the data, then there's going to be problems. Sure. So it's a risk cost-based decision. Again, we've kind of already talked about that. So we've imported the GPOs, created the OUs. We need to link the two together. So as I said earlier, this is all on the active directory, sorry. And then here we're running the WEC util. I can't see.
Importing the config to say what we want clients to actually send us.
Is this what you're talking about? And then there's some verify steps as well. So at the end of each chapter, say, can you see this? Can you see that? So for example, for this one, we want to make sure if you go to the event viewer, you can see forwarded events. So normally it's empty, but when you start doing this kind of behaviors, the subscription LME is ticked. So chapter 2, this is all on the WEC server that you've just provisioned and built and has previously defined within the previous group policy for the clients. We need to download Sysmon, we need to download SigCheck, we need to download an update file, batch script, and they actually need to go on the Active Directory as part of the sysvol directory structure. So this is to facilitate the scheduled task on the clients. So as the clients say at, 12 o'clock every day, they run the update script. SigCheck make sure that the hashes are the latest version. If it's not, then it downloads and reinstalls a new version of Sysmon. So we found earlier in the year that when we originally launched LME, Sysmon was version 8, I think it was. And then Mark Rustinovich, without any sort of prior notice, just went, here's Sysmon 10. Whee! So we have since spoken to Microsoft and we've kind of gently asked them to let us know if they're going to update Sysmon, just so we could then start thinking about that maybe a little bit ahead of time, or at least think about what kind of new features Sysmon provides, which is really good. They say officially they don't support it, but as you see, they're constantly updating it, and the new features added, it's really cool. And again, Mark Rustinovich made it with sysinternals way back when Microsoft bought sysinternals. So it's a Microsoft product. There's two ways of deploying this. So there is the scheduled task that I mentioned earlier, and the SCCM. We generally tend to prefer the GPO scheduled task version, but if you are using SCCM, then you can do so that as well. That'd be fair to say?
Yeah, it tends to be the people who have got SCCM have already got a logging solution in place because of the complexity of SCCM. Yeah. They tends to be the more mature clients. And when we first started, we were aiming for less than 250 devices to be in small businesses. But then with our trial clients, we went to some people that had 6,000 machines and they hadn't even rolled it out across the whole of their estate. So that barrier's kind of gone now. Yeah.
So if you skip on a little bit further, so I don't want to take too much time on the installation. Yeah, this is the definition of the scheduled task. So again, like I said, I think in chapter 1, you're just importing 2 GPOs, and chapter 2, you're importing a third, and that's the third one is for the scheduled task. And then from here, this is where you define where the actual sysvol volume is. So this would be sysmon update.bat. And I would recommend, from personal experience, that you follow the naming convention of your folder structure, because if you don't, you have to update the folders in the script, and that can, it's messy, but there's lots of places you need to update it, and you just don't want to break it. It's supposed to be login made easy. It's not supposed to be login made complicated. So yeah, that's essentially what it is. Again, there's another validation of what the steps that you you've taken at this point. So you can see within the event viewer that the forwarded events start appearing from your clients. And then the third chapter is pretty boring, and this one's sped up. There's two different versions. Well, they're the new documentation, so there's only one version, but you basically build a Linux host to host your Docker containers, which is where your ArcStack sits. And what you do is download the update deploy script, run, go make yourself a cup of coffee, and then you're done. There's a few more steps afterwards that isn't within this video, but if I briefly talk about that, when the script runs, there's a zip file that's created. You then put that zip file onto the WEC server. The WEC server, that basically configures what ships your logs from the WEC server to the LME host. So that's through WinLogBeat, so that's an Elasticsearch import tool. And it's all open source and all freely available. And yeah, it's basically what this video looks like. It's just a scrolling script. It's doing things, creating keys. This is out of date now, so this is creating an Nginx reverse proxy to do authentication, but we're not using that anymore. We're using the basic auth built in with Elasticsearch. And this is essentially what's going on. We're waiting for Elasticsearch to come up, scripts carry on, and then we are done. But like I said earlier, the fourth chapter, I should say, yeah. Again, there's another verify, but you go to the host, you do get a one-time password generated for you. If you go to the host and you go to the right port and accept the self-signed cert, then you get Kibana. And then you are there. So, it's your turn. Pretend we've just skipped through a whole day's worth of making pizza and installing LME. You've just checked your host. You've got Kibana up. If you're able to go to that domain, which is not particularly helpful because the shortened URL wasn't very nice, was it? It wasn't playing ball. So this URL only exists for the conference. So you can take photos, but it will be dead after lunch, unfortunately. So yeah, so the username 44con, the password is password123 with capital P. And we've got some data in there. I don't know what people's prior knowledge about ArcStack is and the logging. So if you'd like us to maybe talk through about how to build UI and visualizations of dashboards, then we're more than happy to do so. If you're more than happy just to get on with it and have a look, and there is some data in there, 5 days worth of data with some activity. I don't want to sort of indicate anything, but there's some information for you to find. Yeah. If there's any questions, or if you want to just crack on, then challenges. Sorry, Duncan. Oh, I'll let you do that, but Duncan, you can read the challenges from that bit if you want. Essentially, you want to know how many devices are running on the network, who has administration rights, can you tell what the patch levels are on the machines, how many vulnerable to APT28 indicators of compromise, and we suspect the network has been compromised. Can you describe the anatomy of the attack? Which is a fairly complicated questions for, if you imagine you're a small, medium enterprise, never done logging before, to go from zero to answering those kind of questions is kind of, I don't know, pretty difficult. So this is what Logging Made Easy is all about. Try and lower that bar.
So yeah, we've got hour and a half time for you to dig through the logs, build some visualization dashboards, and ask some questions if you want.